everybody, and welcome to the Women Talking Money podcast. My name is Gretchen from Magenta Financial Planning, and today I'm joined by Mary Lord. Mary is the founder and director of Yay Creative, a virtual assistant and operations agency dedicated to supporting ambitious, life-first business owners. A passionate entrepreneur and angel investor, she is committed to building businesses that prioritize flexibility, freedom, and fulfillment. Mary launched the business in 2020 and now has a team of 12 working for her. Mary's approach is all about making business work for life, not the other way around. So welcome, Mary, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. What a bio. I know I wrote it, but yeah, it's nice to hear that kind of back for yourself, isn't it? Like, oh yeah, that's me. I've done all those things. So yeah, I am founder of Yay Creative, and yeah, we are 5 years in this year, and actually currently transitioning to Yay 2.0, which is super exciting. And yeah, have just this year sort of started reaching out and joining podcasts and trying to spread my life first ethos a little bit and engage with communities and people who sort of share that mission as well. So really excited to be here. Yeah, let's go.
Thanks so much. And yeah, I mean, I obviously have known you for quite some time and remember like you launching it and stuff. I can't believe it's been 5 years. It also means it's been 5 years since like the dreaded lockdown scenario really happened.
Yeah.
So that's crazy, isn't it? How quick it's gone.
It's mad. Yeah, it's gone so quickly. And just, yeah, it sort of takes someone to actually hold a mirror and be like, it's been 5 years and you've done X, Y, Z, and we're now here to go, yes, actually, that's mad.
Yeah, absolutely. And how have you found those years? Like, are you really pleased that you did it? Are you pleased that you've gone down this route rather than sort of being employed?
Yeah, so I think honestly, it took me until maybe early last year, maybe late 2023 for me to be like, oh, this is actually a business and this is actually a thing that I can do with my life. I think up until that point it had sort of been, yeah, we're just kind of bimbling a bit and have got some team and a few clients and we're just kind of rolling with it to see what happens. And then yeah, I sort of stopped and was a bit like, oh yeah, this is actually quite big and I'm earning really well from it and I'm really good at it and my team's really good and we're having a massive impact, for me to sort of be like, okay, yeah, we need to take this seriously. Not that I wasn't taking it seriously before, but kind of we need to actually put some things in place, get the support we need and grow really, because this is my life now, rather than it just being a sort of COVID almost project. And I always almost kind of started it thinking, we'll see how this goes, but all my friends are getting corporate grad schemes, so I'll probably end up doing that once I've potted about with this thing for a while. But yeah, it turned into a lot more than that, and so now here we are 5 years later with actually quite a serious big girl business.
Yeah, amazing. Well, congratulations, because
Thank you.
It's great to see it going from strength to strength. That's really exciting for you.
Yeah.
So you've kindly agreed, or maybe were volunteered, to come and talk to me about money on this podcast. So I guess we'll start a little bit with talking about early memories of money and how you think, having been able to have the questions before and reflect on them a little bit, how you think that might have shaped your views around where you are today, I guess, with money and running the business.
Yeah, of course. So it was actually quite interesting kind of going through the questions, all this reflecting on, early days and talking to your younger self. And I was just thinking, I'm still a child myself. Like I still feel like a child. So it's quite interesting sort of looking back and reflecting on that. But I think my earliest memory of money that I could kind of rack my brains for was, developing this sort of arrangement with my parents that I would get a £30 a month allowance for doing all of the ironing in the house. Sort of the whole month all the way through. It was actually quite a lot of ironing. There were 4 of us, and I think I started that from maybe I was about 11 or 12, and I think it eventually went up to £40 when I got a bit older, which I just thought was the wildest sort of pay increase ever. I was so excited. But that was my sort of earliest memory of me earning my own money, and I remember sort of planning exactly how I was going to spend it each month, what I was going to put into my piggy bank, what I was going to be able to spend all that money on, whether it was sweets or saving for something else. And I remember saving up all of that money and going to Cribs Causeway in Bristol to buy my first iPod Nano. I bought a pink iPod Nano, and I think they were like £100 back in the day. And that was the most wild amount of money to me. And it was, such a luxury. And I just remember, getting driven there, feeling so grown up with all this money I'd saved for my ironing and being able to buy this expensive item all by myself. And yeah, just feeling so proud of myself. And I think that really shaped my sort of, well, one, that working for your money and then being able to do things and have things because of your hard work feels really, really good. I'll never forget that feeling. And even now, if I'm saving up for something or working towards something and then you get to do it because of money that you've earned or things that you've built or businesses you've created, it feels amazing. And I want to continue doing that. And also that however much I earn, whether it's £30 or £3,000 or £30,000, I will always prioritize putting some of it away and portioning some of it to, what I need to save for things like an iPod Nano or, fun stuff or, kind of current spending. So I'll always pay myself first so that I can enjoy things later on and kind of build my wealth, from quite an early age.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because it sounds like that it's an interesting one. We talk a lot about like dopamine hits from like purchasing things, and we talk a lot
Yeah.
about the concept of saving and like that you can still get that dopamine hit, but like slightly delayed gratification by the fact that you're actually like saving hard for it rather than just kind of immediately going for it, which of course our culture allows us to just sort of immediately buy things and maybe put them on credit and not really think about that. So that's quite interesting that that's definitely something that's like come through and continues for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like that delayed, I'm gonna feel even better actually if I've managed to like save for this, earn for this, make this happen for myself and get to that goal.
Yeah. There's no better feeling, I think, yeah, what I'm very, and I'll sort of talk about this, I suppose, a bit later on, but very sort of money pot oriented. So, having a goal and being able to put things away for it and then being able to enjoy it, whether it's a holiday or whatever, is is such a core kind of piece of my relationship with money and how I kind of operate my life.
I'm quite interested to know whether that's, when you're running a business and now you've got other people working for you as well, Mary, whether that's something that you carry into like the business as well. That's slightly off script, so understand if you want to think about that. But
Right.
I sometimes like, it's kind of really interested to know what we do in our personal goals and money goals or habits more, or like ways that we figured out how we work with money is the way that we can then implement in our business, and whether that's the best thing too.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think there's definitely an element of that. And before I make any big investments in business, like, I'm rebranding this year and it's costing me the most money I've ever spent on one kind of thing in my business. And I, definitely sort of checked with my accountant first that, we were in a good position to sort of be able to do that. So I do think in a way it is sort of similar, but also I think in business, I have a much more kind of YOLO approach a little bit to it. I don't know why there's such a sort of difference, because in my personal, everything is accounted for, and it's almost like it should be the other way around. I feel like most people would probably be slightly scrappier in their personal and their business is really tight. But actually, and it's not that we're a shambles in the business, but I like to kind of use it as I don't know, if I want things within business, I will scrap to kind of make it happen. And like, if I commit to this rebrand or if I commit to X amount of money, then I have to work extra hard to kind of, pull clients in and make that happen. So yeah, it's slightly different for me in that respect. I won't necessarily save up for things. I will just I'll leap and go, yeah, we're doing it. Because I believe that sometimes being a bit uncomfortable actually makes you grow and makes you work harder. So it's almost like I'll make it up afterwards rather than in personal. I'll have it all there ready to go before I leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And in business, maybe we do have to accept there's an element more of like risk required to be able to get the best things that we want for our business and take those leaps, as you say, like be outside your comfort zone and push ourselves a bit more. So I can totally relate to that. Yeah. And so do you think there's a specific person or event that has influenced your relationship with money?
Yeah, definitely. I think my parents were massive influences on my relationship with money and sort of how I approach things. They, as you know, were both in financial planning, specifically my mum till a few years ago. And so I very much, my sister and I grew up under the influence of kind of their views on money, spending, saving, investing, all of that. They included us in conversations about our own money from a really early age and sort of set us up with savings accounts and taught us the basics and, you know, kind of gave us all that financial education really that schools weren't giving us at the time. And they continue to be, and mum especially, a port of call for me when it comes to questions about my money. You know, is this the right decision? Should I sell my flat? Should I do X, Y, Z? So I am really lucky to have a really clear and firm grip on my finances and sort of how the world works in that regard because of their influence and their relationship with money. And I also think that they modeled quite early on for, again, me and my sister, that earning and then spending your money is a balancing act. So, you know, they taught us, again, this kind of, we can work hard for our money and spend it on nice things like holidays and iPod Nanos or whatever, but that actually it can be more important, or, you know, you've got to strike that balance to also save for the future and invest and sort of develop and work on your relationship with money, and kind of keeping that is really important. So yeah, that's something that's definitely shaped my current relationship with money.
And do you think, and how would you describe that relationship with money if I asked you to do that in one word?
I would say specifically now or this year, my relationship is strict, would be my word. So I'm currently in the process of buying a house with my partner, which we know will need work and want to do extension on. And I've also got a lot of things coming up this year just because of how I live my life that I need to plan for financially, like holidays. My current property needs a new roof on, which is going to cost between three of us sort of 45 grand. So whilst I'm generally usually really good and strict with my money and have a monthly routine of spitting it all out and proportioning, etc., this year specifically, I need to be really strict and kind of well planned with things so it covers everything I need it to cover. And I still can survive on a day-to-day basis.
So I guess there's not too much wiggle room this year.
There's not a lot of wiggle room, but with that kind of strictness and my planning for the boring things like a new roof and stamp duty and whatever also means that with my strictness, I get to put aside what I want for things. So there's still fun and, you know, spending money baked in there because I want to live the life I want to live now and also in the future. And so I can commit to fun and expensive holidays and plans because I know that I've got my basics covered. So the strictness means that when things are covered, I can then enjoy the fun things guilt-free.
Yeah, because you've planned it. You've built them in. You're not being necessarily spontaneous with that, but you have made the necessary adjustments to make sure that you can still enjoy those things in your plan. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? When we come to, I quite often talk about money habits and whether you are a planner, which knowing who your mother is, although we haven't said that on this podcast, but people probably work it out. But knowing who she is, knowing that she was a financial planner, and being brought up in that environment, I think that it's quite interesting, you know, being a planner, being spontaneous, being carefree. I would say that, like, you know, being carefree and spontaneous don't have to necessarily be unplanned.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's what you're saying is I've built those things in. So being strict, but I'm still going to have those opportunities, you know, in my plan.
Yeah, definitely. It's like I've got the kind of fun money aside for, it's like a planned spontaneity pot of money. Like if someone comes to me and goes, do you want to do this? I goes, yes, I've got this perfectly planned for when this random thing was about to happen. And yes, I can do it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we talked a little bit about it, but talk to me about how you're, you know, you've said, or I understand the, you know, trying to enjoy it, you want to live for today, but also think about the future. So how are you approaching that balance? Because, you know, as you alluded right at the start, you are still really young. And what is that saving for the future, which typically we would talk about when you no longer work, wherever that is, whatever that looks like. That's a long way away for you. So how are you kind of balancing that and thinking about that in these decisions?
Yeah, so I think it comes down to being really clear on the version of my life that I want to live, whether that's now or in the future. And sort of, you know, I have a relatively clear vision, and it's relatively clear with, you know, my partner. We kind of know where we're going, and you know, I've got a whole vision board of dream life on, you know, my computer background. And so it kind of comes back to then being really strict with myself in the now, and, you know, making sure that I'm putting those things aside and planning for the future so that I can get there and achieve what I want to achieve when it comes to that. So approaching that balance is kind of like what I've said already, I suppose, is my financial routine each month. I've got a super detailed spreadsheet with all my outgoings, incomings, trickle down formulas, percentage splits. I've got short-term, long-term savings, or I've got sinking funds that most people think are just the most ridiculous thing. Like I've got, I think one of them is an EasyJet, my EasyJet Plus membership, which is £200 a year for, you know, you get to book all your things in advance and get extra luggage and speedy boarding. But I travel a lot, so I find it's worth it. But if 1 month I have to pay a whole £200 out of my budget, it'll skew everything. So I split it between the whole year. So every month I put a little bit into my EasyJet so that when it comes to it, the money's there. And I do the same with my hair appointments and all of that. So it's all, you know, fine tuned. Some might say a bit neurotic.
Yeah.
But
it sounds very detailed, Mary. Yeah.
It's very detailed. But what it comes down to is that I want to work to a zero-based budget, so that the aim at the end of the month is I've got £0 in my bank account, because everything is where it needs to be. I pay myself first. And so that whole system works really well for me, ensuring the balance, because my needs are covered and I get my money left over to spend on what I want, and my commitments are covered, and I've got healthy savings and all of that. And yeah, I think because I am absolutely miles away from when I'm not working, it's easier to do that, because it's my kind of saving for future. I don't really know what that looks like. That, you know, I've sort of lucky enough to be in the process of currently buying a house, and sort of other big financial things for me, like, I don't know, having kids or whatever, feel again absolutely miles off. So it feels like for me, I've got ages to save for what the future is, because the future feels really far away. And actually my current routine works well to save for my sort of short-term future, which savings will generally just involve nice holidays or, you know, a roof fix here and there. So yeah.
And do you find that vision, because I do think it's a really major the thing, you know, it was so far away. I mean, I remember being your age and I was like, oh, what, I'm still paying. It obviously was paying to my pension and doing all of those things, but it's so far away, and it's getting further away just because of how things kind of work with pension rules and things like that. So but I guess also retirement won't look exactly the same in 40, 50 years. Like it's just not going to be like it's already different now than it was 20 years ago. So do you think that vision boarding is like is a way that has helped you like remain focused? Like this is how I'd like my life to be, and so I'm going to put this money aside.
Yeah, so I only started vision boarding. I say vision boarding like as a whole, you know, life you know, approach. I just sort of did one because I needed a computer lock screen, and I thought I'll just pull one together just for kind of this year, and sort of see if it works for me. And I've got it on my phone, I've got it on my computer, and actually it's been weirdly effective so far. You know, I've put this dream hotel in Italy that I really wanted to stay at, and it's kind of been there in my face every single day. And we've ended up booking it in May because, you know, I know what it would cost, and spoke to my partner about it, and we sort of were like, yeah, financially we're gonna be able to make it happen. And so whilst I'm not, you know, like a lifelong vision boarder, I've started it in the last sort of 6 months or so, sort of near to the end of last year, and have found it really, really effective in keeping the vision and the mission really clear, but also having enough kind of general vibes on the vision board that it's not, you know, we can't veer off the path and be spontaneous and kind of do fun things wherever. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it. And I'm not, you know, I'm not a woo girl at all. I don't do crystals and manifesting really, but yeah, I found it really works, kind of keeping it front and center, kind of what we want to do. And I do it in business and I do it in my personal life as well.
It's really interesting because we did an exercise at the end of last year with a couple of people at the office, and I did it as well. But you were limited, so this is sort of an interesting way to look at it. You had like maybe 5 or 6 magazines or something you've collected, but
Mm.
and you had to physically just use those. So
Okay.
you went through and you cut out anything that was of interest to you to start off with, just anything that resonated with you, anything you liked, anything that might rep, those things, and then built I mean, we were building a physical board. You could, the idea is eventually you could make a digital version of it, I guess, but
Mm.
it limited you. So, like sometimes when you do it, you can just do it on Pinterest, you can find whatever you like. But this kind of, and what was really interesting, there was set patterns that came up about it. So it's like, travel was important or whatever it was represented not necessarily by something that you've, deliberately gone and found on the internet, but there was just something that a word or a header or whatever it was,
Mm.
and it was a really interesting way of doing it. And I think it's a great way of like really thinking about your values and what's important, and
Yeah.
especially when it comes to money. So it's really interesting because it's not something that's come up on any of the other conversations that I've had. So I'm pleased that you've brought it up because
Yeah.
I think it's a good shout. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I really enjoy it. Would highly recommend.
So thinking about, I guess, financial freedom, I normally, it's one question that in the first series I asked absolutely everyone. I don't ask everyone now, because I think financial freedom just means so many different things to people. And that has also evolved, I think, over the last 20 years. Definitely the answer would have been before stopping work or whatever. And now I get all different sorts of answers. So, what does it mean to you and how are you working towards that?
Yeah. So I think, again, it sort of comes back to keeping things fluid, but also having a plan. So for me, it looks like having enough income, savings, investments, whatever it might be, to live the life that I want to live. And that kind of want will change and it'll move and it'll be fluid. And so it counts for kind of now, am I living the life I want to live now? If yes, I have achieved tick financial freedom. There's never a tick, really, is it? There's always work to be done. But that also then applies to the life I want in the future. So, each iteration of life, am I working towards, or have I achieved in this instance, in this iteration, financial freedom? And that's what that looks like. Again, yeah, because I feel so far away from saying things like, oh, I'll be financially free when I don't have to work. I try not to put, set kind of goals on it. It's more just, am I doing what I want to be doing? Am I living life the way I want to be doing? If yes, great.
So, do you think that it feels a particular way?
I think it feels, for me, again, it comes back to my weird little routine, but it feels like I've got my shit together. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on the podcast.
It's all right. Yeah, yeah.
It feels like I've got everything together. I know I'm covered. I know I'm sorted. I know that if I got a really expensive bill for something, or, something terrible happened tomorrow, I'd be okay. And that's what it feels like. I don't have to, obviously there's always, I say worries, it's not worries, but there's always, people always thinking about money. I check my bank account every single day, even though it's, multiple times throughout the day, even though it's the same morning to evening, because I'm so neurotic about it. But it's feeling like you don't have to do that. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to close my eyes and open my banking app because I'm terrified of what it's going to look like. I look at it because I'm like, oh yeah, all my sinking funds that have all got all their little pictures of where I'm next going on holiday and stuff. And it feels good. And it feels like I'm not stressed. I'm not like, I need to scramble to make loads more money. I feel secure and comfortable and happy, I think, is the main thing.
Great. And if you could give one piece of financial advice to your younger self, which is the question that you mentioned earlier, because you are still very young, so this might be only your younger self 4 years ago.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Well, it would be to not buy the pink iPod Nano, because you'll fall out of love with the colour. Get the white one. Yeah, it's really hard. Even thinking kind of back to 4 years ago, thinking like myself at uni and things like that. It's hard. It's hard to sort of think. I don't feel like I've made any sort of awful decisions where I'd go back and be like, don't do that, that's a horrible plan, you'll, lose loads of money or XYZ. Again, because I've always had that sort of leaning post in my parents or my mum, I think without that, and that's generally why they've been such a massive influence, without that I probably could have gone horribly wrong, because I can be quite impulsive, and even though I plan for things, I'm an absolute sucker for a Target ad.
The algorithm,
man. Oh gosh, yeah, it's stay away from TikTok Shop is a key one. Yeah, do you know what? Maybe it would be, don't use Klarna for the first time, because I remember I had to try a few dresses on for some event or something, and I think I was buying off ASOS and needed, their sizing is horrible, and I just ended up ordering loads of different sizes, loads of different dresses, and didn't want them to have my large amount of money for X amount of time. So I remember Klarnaing, and it's just too easy, Klarna. I don't use it too much now, but it's always there, and it's always like one click away, and you don't have to spend any money now, in brackets. I think my only real sort of, I'm flawed in all sorts of ways, but my sort of big money flaw would be to kind of fall quite easily for things like that. And so yeah, I would go back and be like, don't do the Klarna option for the first time. Just buy a couple of dresses, try them on, and send them back.
Maybe if I'm still doing this in 10 years, we'll have another conversation, Mary, and see what we've learned in the last 10 years.
I'm sure there'll be a lot, and I'm sure I'm coming from this all again quite young, with quite a naive sort of approach to things, and you're there like, yes, you'll learn. But yeah,
I think these things are so difficult. But the thing about debt, the Klarna thing, for me, is like, just don't put a holiday on your credit card unless you know that you can repay it straight away.
yeah,
Or at least in a couple of months. Like, I think that's the kind of one thing that everyone needs to just know, is that really, you should just be able to pay for it the day you buy it,
yeah,
even if you still use your credit card, to make sure that you've got that protection.
yeah,
Just know that you can pay for it, and especially with holidays and travel, because
yeah.
else you just need to wait a bit longer until you can go.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's that thing that people say, isn't it? That, well, kind of with any purchase, where if you can't afford to buy it twice, you can't afford it, which I've always thought was quite interesting and didn't necessarily always agree with, especially if it's like a car or something. But
No,
yeah,
I think there
people,
are definitely allowances to that rule. I've
yeah,
heard, yeah, it's quite a well-known one, isn't it? But I think
yeah,
when it comes to those really big, well, the things that, yeah, because you might need to buy a car because you actually have to drive somewhere
yeah,
for making money.
yeah,
So these things are all the same. But when it's something that you don't, that is as you say, desired rather than a need, then you just
mm,
need to know you've been able to pay it.
yeah,
So, a couple of other questions then. So, if money was no object, how might your life look different?
yeah. I was having to think about this one, and I feel like the immediate place that people go is, oh, well, I wouldn't work. And while I don't think overnight I'd be like, oh, right, business is closed down, I'm not doing it anymore. There's definitely less pressure, isn't there? But yeah, I just think I would honestly get so bored if I wasn't working, or at least doing something that had impact, or, was purpose driven. I'd need to be kept going by something. I would potentially travel and not take my laptop with me, which I do pretty much all the time now. But yeah, I'd need to be leading something or doing something to create impact. I don't know, supporting women in business in some capacity, or yeah, essentially a little bit of doing what I do now, but without, yeah, that constant sort of pressure to be earning and making money. I think, yeah, I'd go
Yeah.
mad. I'd go mad without anything to do.
I mean, you'd have more time to move potentially and do things like that, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't try to pack up my entire life in 4 days.
Yeah.
Yes, but here we are. It's happening.
Yeah, excellent. So, right, as we wrap up then, what's one thing that you'd want every woman to know or think differently about when it comes to money?
Really interesting one. One thing I want. I think from having discussions with kind of my peers or people my age, or, girlfriends, that it's so clear to me that, and even more so as I get older, that the privilege I had growing up with parents who knew their stuff, and that I sort of only really clocked that really in the last few years, as I spoke to my friends and they had no money invested, or they didn't have an ISA, or they had no idea what they were doing with their money. And so what I think I'd want people to know now, especially kind of people my age, is that you can, there's so much advice and education and stuff online, is that you can start to kind of work your way towards financial freedom or to educate yourself financially without having loads of money or kind of being an adult. None of us feel like, people my age, especially again my friends, but none of us feel like adults right now. And I think we almost see kind of pensions and retirement funds and sinking funds and buying a house as like adult things. So I think, yeah, the main thing I'd want people to know is that it's never too late, but it's also never too early. Like, get started yesterday and or today. And that, yeah, you don't have to be earning stacks and stacks to save or to put a bit away or whatever. I always say to some of my best friends, okay, can you put away 2%? They'll come to me and go, I can't afford to save. And I go, I bet you could probably save £50 a month. So yeah, that I suppose.
Although that's great, honestly, yeah, it's really, really good. And okay, so as we wrap up, where can people find out about you and Yay Creative?
Yeah, so they can find out about us, although we are rebranding, so we will soon be yaycollective.co.uk. You can find me on Instagram. Currently, Yay Creative will be Yay Collective at Yay Collective, and yeah, all about us on there. Kind of our services, what we get up to. My Instagram is more me sort of talking about sort of business things and a little bit about our services, but more sort of that life first energy and ethos that I try to bring to everything. Yeah.
LinkedIn as well?
Sorry, yes, I'm also on LinkedIn. Mary Lord on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Good, Mary. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and
You're very welcome.
sharing everything with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been lovely. Thanks for having me on.